So, KTM 790 Adventure. Is it any good? Well, stick around because in this video, I'm going to let you know my thoughts.
Right, so we're at a very wet and wild Sweet Lamb complex in Wales. Just having a bit of a route round on 790 Adventure. I'm going to stick the GoPro on and show you what's what.
Great, well, as you can tell from the intro that we've probably put together, I had a lot of fun on that motorcycle. I really did. And that was pretty much the first time I'd swung the leg over it. So, and it gave me a good first impression. And what was that first impression? Well, basically that this is a motorcycle that's a lot of fun. I think it's made by a group of passionate people. And if you've ridden any of the new KTM products, they kind of all give you that feeling. This is a high performance machine. So yes, it's a middleweight adventure. People travel all around the world on these type of motorcycles, but the KTM variant has a bit more flavor than what you would normally expect from some of the Japanese brands, for example. Just puts a massive smile on your face. It's very high performance, and yeah, I had a lot of fun on that bike. Now, just to put that into context, we've recently just done a test with the Suzuki V-Strom 800DE and the Honda Transalp. There's a massive difference between them and this KTM product. If I was to compare them, in a high performance setting, and bear that in mind, that obviously this KTM 790 Adventure is not going to be for everyone, but in terms of like high performance, it absolutely blows those other two bikes into the weeds. It really, really does. So much more engaging, much more capable off-road, and it's just made by people that are passionate, I think, about the product, and you can definitely tell that when you ride it. I mean, for me, if I was considering buying a Suzuki V-Strom 800, it's a great bike, but I think I'd have to be asking myself some serious questions. Am I also planning for retirement and buying a bungalow as well? Whereas the KTM variant, I would quite happily buy because it kind of fits what I want to do on a motorcycle. It makes me feel alive, and that's very much the first impression that I get from it. So the best way for me to split this review up is to talk about the two different settings in which we rode the motorcycle, and that first one is in an off-road setting. So we had the full day in Wales. The morning was spent at the Sweet Lamb Adventure Centre that's in mid-Wales, and then for the back half of the day we rode it all the way back to KTM headquarters in Northampton. So I'll talk about the Sweet Lamb stuff off-road first. So starting with the off-road performance, I'd say that the 790 Adventure does a fantastic job. It's really, really capable. The spec sheet says it weighs 199 kilos dry, so you can imagine with fuel and oil in it, it's going to be sort of 215, 220, which doesn't actually sound that lightweight. But I have to say, the bike seems to handle its weight really well. Seems to have a low center of gravity that these KTMs are kind of famous for. This seems to have transferred to this model. It's dead easy to pick up and off the side stand. It's got quite a low seat height, which makes it really manageable, especially for me. I'm like 5'9". I found it dead confidence inspiring. It's really easy to maneuver at low speed. That just gives you a lot of confidence basically to use it. That was also actually backed up by the Sweet Lamb instructors, who usually use the 890 Adventure Rs for their students. They were actually saying, maybe we should get some of these, because actually for some of their more novice customers, they actually thought that the 790 Adventure might actually be better for them because it's easier to put 2 feet down on the floor, which is obviously much more confidence inspiring for new people into this. So the bike comes on these Pirelli kind of 50-50 tyres. I'm a massive fan of this tyre in an on-road setting, but I'm really not a fan of it off-road. I think it's got no grip at all. You're just slipping and sliding everywhere. What that did enable, though, is us to get the bike out of shape a little bit more and test some of the electronics. Basically, with this bike, obviously it's got a load of power. You just open the throttle and all of a sudden you've got power slide coming on very easily. What I did with the electronics is actually set the slip mode to level 3, and I thought that was an awesome setting. Basically, I could hold the throttle pretty much wide open, big power slide, and could kind of do what I wanted with it, but also had a little bit of electronic interference as well. But it's not restrictive, no hard power cuts. I think the electronics on this 790 Adventure are really well developed, and I think that's quite a fair standout feature of the bike. So the stood-up position on the 790 Adventure is definitely more aggressive than other middleweight adventure bikes that I've tested before, much less motocrossy, where you kind of got your hands up here and you're much less stood up vertical. You're more kind of over the bike. Now, for me personally, I actually really like that aggressive riding position because it sets me engaged. I'm ready to tackle what's coming ahead of me, and I just quite like that type of feeling. But at the same time, I would definitely understand if riders were taller, kind of requesting that it maybe had bar rises or something. So, for example, John from Lamb Chop Rides was also on our test. He's 6'2". He's a really big guy, and he did kind of look a bit more uncomfortable on it. So I would definitely say if you were a taller rider looking to get on this and do some off-roading and standing up and stuff, maybe you would consider a bar riser. But for me, I really like the aggressive riding position. I was also able to push the 790 Adventure much more than I would on a regular middleweight adventure bike, such as the Transalp, for example, or the V-Strom. Basically, all the stuff that you're seeing on camera, like jumping it and all that kind of stuff, I really wouldn't have wanted to do that on those other bikes, because I think I'd have either broken them or the bikes just wouldn't have been capable, basically. This 790 Adventure is a really, really capable bike, and I was dead comfortable and confident pushing it and doing some of those things. It kind of goes without saying, I guess, but the 790 motor for off-roading, 95 horsepower this motor's got. It's very powerful. I mean, if you're wanting more than 95 horsepower in an off-road environment, I kind of think you need your head testing, basically, because it's got absolutely loads of power. You open the throttle, the rear wheel spins up. It's going to do that on whatever tyre you're on because it's just got a load of power. Very, very good. I think the only area that I didn't get to test, which I really would have wanted to, was to test its stall resistance. Unfortunately, we didn't get to ride terrain that was kind of tricky enough or technical enough or slow enough, really, just to do those low speed maneuvers where you're kind of going up something steep with rocks in it and stuff like that. I know the previous 790 Adventure R we found struggled with stall resistance. It would stall a lot basically. I don't know at this point whether this engine has fixed that or not. I really hope it does because it makes a big difference, but unfortunately I can't comment on that one. I think the only area that the 790 Adventure kind of struggles in an off-road setting is the suspension package that it comes with. Obviously, we have to bear in mind that this forms the model lineup that KTM have for their adventure bikes, basically, and this is at the lower spectrum. But what I did find is that the bike is quite easy to bottom out. I bottomed it out a lot, and while I thought the suspension overall was pretty good in normal sort of riding off-road, I really didn't like the absolute crunches that the bike made when I slammed it to the bottom of its stroke and smacked the sump guard on the floor. I'm sure the KTM staff weren't sort of super enamoured about that either, and it made me wince a couple of times, I'll be honest. But at the same time, I'm not sure how many 790 Adventure owners are going to be jumping their bikes and doing that kind of thing. You know, maybe it's a minority, and for that minority you could definitely consider other models that KTM have got in their range, the 890 Adventure R, things like that have got longer travel suspension and higher quality suspension as well. So I think that's the only downside for the 790 Adventure as a middleweight adventure bike off-road. Yeah, so other than that, I think it's absolutely class. So now we sort of transition to our on-road section. So we rode from Sweet Lamb all the way to Northampton across the beautiful sort of Welsh mountain roads, and then we covered some motorway work and some much more boring roads, I suppose. But the impression of the 790 Adventure on the road is that it's equally impressive. This is a all-round really impressive motorcycle. All the things what I've talked about in terms of its entertainment value, its eagerness, its high performance nature kind of transitions to road as well. So it's a really entertaining bike to ride. If you're looking at an adventure bike and you're coming from a sports bike and you want some entertainment factor as well, but you're kind of looking at this segment, I don't think you're going to be disappointed with this bike because it's class. The motor's dead punchy. It'll do whatever you want. The electronics are fantastic. You can pull wheelies, you can skid it, you can do whatever you want on it basically. It's a top-notch motorcycle. I really enjoyed using the quick shifter blipper that they've got. Obviously this motorcycle came with the KTM Tech Pack. That's £860. Comes with the quick shifter blipper and all of the extra electronic functions. Definitely recommend getting that as part of it. You've kind of have you got a half a bike until you get that? I definitely think that a quick shifter blipper makes a big difference, and it's definitely nice to have all of the electronic functions unlocked with the bike. The only slight criticism I'd make about the motor on the 790 Adventure, and this is kind of pretty consistent throughout some of the other models as well, and I'll say the same about the Norden 901 for example, and kind of all the parallel twins that are coming out of KTM at the moment, is that for me personally, I don't 100% agree with the engine brake strategy that they seem to be coming out with. Basically, the bikes run very free, kind of more like a two-stroke really. There's very little to no engine braking at all. I think what that does do is it makes the bikes feel very smooth on and off the throttle. So if you're on and off the throttle, there's no dive, there's no engine braking basically. So yeah, I guess that could be a benefit to some people. But for me personally, I like a bit of engine braking, and I found that when you're going into corners, and you'd normally be relying on engine braking to help you pull back round and sort of tighten the apex basically, I find that I'm having to really quite trail brake right the way through the corner, or even start to apply brake mid corner because I'm just, I'm not being pulled back at all. Now, when I'm on the side of the tyre and I'm in the wet, last thing I want to be doing, it's just counterintuitive that I want to be applying a load of front brake or rear brake or something like that. It's just counterintuitive. So I would prefer more engine brake in this engine. It's not the end of the world, but it's not something that I particularly like and would love to see them improve it going forward. On the handling front, I actually really like it. I think obviously this bike's got a 21-inch front wheel. I don't think that's a problem. The bike handled really well. They actually got to a bit of road that was dry, believe it or not, in 2 days. It was absolutely shocking weather. But we got to a road section and it was dry, and we started to push on a bit, and flipping heck, this bike can handle. Really, really good handling. Like I say, those Pirelli tyres, man, there's nothing wrong with them on the road. I would say they're a good 9 out of 10 on the road. Really, really top notch. The brakes. Now we've got to talk about the brakes as well. For me, it's a top notch braking system. Obviously in, other models in the range, we're starting to put on Brembo calipers and different master cylinders and so on. But I have to say, I thought the brakes on the 790 Adventure were awesome. Probably the fundamental piece that they've got right on all of the KTM models is that they seem to be coming with this Bosch ABS system. That is so much more advanced than all of the other Japanese ABS systems. With the off-road ABS set on, you can skid the rear, you can pull big long rolling stoppies, good power, no ABS interference unless you actually need it. Really, really good brake setup. I also found the 790 Adventure super comfortable. I mean, obviously we rode it all day, 200 miles or something. For me, I found it dead comfy. I'd happily sit on that motorcycle all day, pound out the miles. Thought it was awesome. Cruise control works really great, obviously. And that new screen that they've put on this 790 Adventure, I think they've got the same one on the 890 Adventure. Such a massive improvement over the old one. I mean, the old one, you'd feel like you were going into flipping warp zone or something. It was really, really not great. This one is much better, basically. It covers right over your shoulders. And actually what I found is if you duck down like that, there's a little hole in it in the middle, and you can kind of like peek through it. And when you get into that position, you're almost totally cocooned from the weather. It's quite cool. I really thought the screen was great. Can't believe we're talking about screens. So as an overall package, I think it's absolutely mustard. And if I had £9,999 and I couldn't really go a penny over that, in terms of the competition, there would be nowhere else that I was putting my money other than on one of these 790 Adventures. Really, really top notch. But having said that, is there any downsides? And I think there's definitely a few things to consider. Now, for me personally, I've been lucky enough to experience some of the models above this. So I've ridden quite extensively the Norden 901, for example. I was at the launch of that, and we borrowed one a few weeks ago for a model photo shoot that we did. And everything about the 790 Adventure, which is really great, that I've talked about, the entertainment value, how capable it is, all that kind of stuff, is exactly the same with the Norden 901 or the 890 Adventure, but it just puts it on another 20% basically. So, it's just the fact that I've tasted something slightly more sweet. I'd probably, if it was me, I'd find the extra couple of grand and I'd probably put my money into one of those. Now, that's not taking away anything from the 790 Adventure. It's just acknowledging that there are different levels here. And for me personally, I'd probably find a way to get up a level because the products are better again, effectively. So that's not really a criticism. The only other consideration, and this is definitely going to come up in the comments section, is that these 790 platform models are actually now made in China. Now, people seem to get really hot under the collar about this, and for the life of me, I can't really understand why. This bike has got to be made to a price, but it's also got to be made to KTM specifications. I didn't see any problems with the motorcycle the whole time that we rode it. Just fantastic. It didn't really seem to be at the detriment of the model or the quality of it. So I don't think people should worry about that in perhaps quite the heated manner that they are. So that's been our review of the KTM 790 Adventure. I think it's absolutely mustard and a really, really strong package. Really hope you've enjoyed this video. Please like, comment and subscribe. Check out all the gear that I use to protect myself on test, and we'll see you next time.